춥지 않은가요? 처음 태어난 이별에서 사는 우리 손잡아요.
Coming up on Arirang News. Just after coming home from a state visit to the U.S., another summit awaits President Yoon with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida likely to visit Seoul this weekend. This is expected to resume active diplomacy between the two countries and boost cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. South Korea, U.S., and Japan are expected to hold a trilateral summit at the upcoming G7 later this month in Hiroshima. This, according to Washington, as it plans to highlight the importance of trilateral cooperation amid escalating threats from North Korea. With exports of chips dropping by more than 40% on year in last month, South Korea's outbound shipments fall for the 7th consecutive month. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in South Korea. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with President Yoon expected summit with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida as the Japanese leader is likely to visit Seoul this weekend. This is seen as a being way to resume active diplomacy between the two countries and strengthen cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. Our Han Sung-woo leads our coverage tonight.
Seoul and Tokyo are in the final stages of negotiating a summit between South Korean President Yoon and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Seoul this Sunday, May 7th. That's according to a senior official from South Korea's top office, who said that Tokyo had wanted Prime Minister Kishida to make a trip to Seoul since quite a while ago. Contrary to some observations that his visit would take place around the summer, it's been said that South Korea and Japan had already started negotiations for an earlier summit even before President Yoon's state visit to the United States late last month. The two countries are reportedly discussing terms to simultaneously announce the upcoming summit on Tuesday. And if it happens, it would mark the first time a Japanese prime minister visits South Korea in 5 years. Considering it would be held just over 50 days after their summit in Tokyo, South Korea is viewing it as the complete resumption of regular reciprocal trips, or what the two nations' leaders called shuttle diplomacy. Kishida's upcoming visit will come before South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. likely join forces for a trilateral summit in a few weeks on the sidelines of the 49th G7 summit in Hiroshima, to which Yoon was invited by Kishida back in March. It's still being arranged, but the three nations are expected to discuss security cooperation against North Korea's nuclear threats. Some diplomatic sources are even projecting a trilateral consultative body on extended deterrence to be newly launched, but according to a senior South Korean official, negotiations on that haven't begun yet. The latest developments come just days after Yoon and U.S. President Joe Biden signed the Washington Declaration to further strengthen the ironclad ROK-U.S. alliance, a move that has angered not just Pyongyang, but also Beijing and Moscow. China and Russia's foreign ministries have claimed the new accord destabilizes regional security and increases tensions. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan will hold a meeting on the sidelines of the G7 summit later in May. This is according to a Yonhap News report on Monday, citing an unnamed senior U.S. official. The G7 is set to take place in Hiroshima, Japan from May 19th to the 21st, with the three-way summit expected to take place on the last day. It's been speculated that the trilateral meeting will be used as a way to emphasize the importance of cooperation amid increasing threats from North Korea. It comes around 6 months after the last trilateral summit between the three nations in Phnom Penh, Cambodia last November. President Yoon is now back home, having wrapped up his state visit in the United States last week. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young covers the key achievements of his trip.
Touching down in Seoul on Sunday afternoon, President Yoon Suk-yeol returned from his official U.S. visit with a number of agreements aimed at broadening and deepening the 70-year alliance. The most notable outcome was the Washington Declaration, a separate document he produced with Joe Biden following their summit. To address North Korea's growing nuclear threat, the declaration reaffirmed Washington's extended deterrence commitment to defending its ally. It also established a nuclear consultative group to provide Seoul with more insights on how the US plans and acts upon the use of nuclear weapons. Critics, however, say the consultative group may fall short of expectations, as US officials say they do not consider the new body a form of nuclear sharing with the South, like its arrangement with NATO. On the economic front, Yoon's biggest task was addressing concerns about America's industrial guardrails against China and tax credit policies hurting South Korean chip and automakers. Without immediate solutions, the two sides agreed to mitigate uncertainty for the South Korean firms through close consultations in light of the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. Calling himself South Korea's #1 salesman, Yoon held a number of roundtables and business events, garnering some $5.9 billion in investment from US firms including Netflix. Some 50 MOUs were signed among the over 120 corporate leaders who made up his business delegation, focusing on the high-tech and bio sectors, agreeing to join together across all crucial strategic technologies, from semiconductor supply chains to the research and development of quantum and space tech. Yoon and Biden established a National Security Council-level economic dialogue and reaffirmed their commitment to developing the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. President Yoon also pushed to make South Korea a more active player in global governance.
Mr. President, your principled leadership has helped bring us even closer together and has made Korea a global pivotal state.
In a speech to Congress, the first in 10 years for a South Korean leader, and in his unprecedented lecture at Harvard Kennedy School, Yoon pledged South Korea, as a past recipient of international support during and after the Korean War, will stand up for freedom and liberal democracy around the world. Yoon's official state visit having set the blueprint for the bilateral alliance and expanding value-based friendship. The president's mission now is to turn his stateside pledges into tangible outcomes for the South Korean public. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol, upon returning from his visit to the United States, said the upgraded and expanded South Korea-U.S. alliance should serve as a platform of opportunity for the next generation of young people. According to the presidential office on Monday, President Yoon also ordered his senior secretaries to come up with specific follow-up measures to make such happen. Yoon added that the recent South Korea-U.S. summit is very meaningful in that it expanded the alliance between the two countries in all of the following areas: security, industry, science and tech, education, culture, and more. One of the key outcomes between Presidents Yoon and Biden during last week's summit was a separate statement on the ways to step up deterrence against North Korea's threats. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has more on how similar or different the deal could be from NATO's nuclear sharing arrangement with the U.S.
The new Washington Declaration between South Korea and the U.S. involves the creation of a Nuclear Consultative Group, or NCG, where the two countries will share information on nuclear assets and intelligence, and jointly plan responses and exercises. Seoul's presidential office said the Nuclear Consultative Group will hold consultations 4 times a year, with 2 or 3 to come later this year. In a joint press briefing following the summit, President Yoon had said they'll discuss ways to conduct joint operations using both countries' weapons.
북한의 위협에 대응하여 핵과 전략무기 운영 계획에 대한 정보를 공유하고 한국의 첨단 재래식 전력과 미국의 핵전력을 결합한 공동작전을 함께 기획하고 실행하기 위한 방안을 정기적으로 협의할 것이며 그 결과는 양 정상에게 보고될 것입니다.
The newly created NCG is similar to NATO's consultative group, the NPG, but there are some differences. The biggest difference is the deployment of U.S. nuclear assets. As for NATO, U.S.-owned nuclear weapons are stored in 5 member states, including Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Turkey. But under the NCG, nuclear assets will not be stationed in South Korean territory. Biden specifically underscored that Washington would not deploy nuclear weapons on the peninsula. Instead, U.S. will periodically dock its nuclear-armed submarine and other strategic assets in South Korea. Another difference is that the NCG is a bilateral agreement between South Korea and the U.S., whereas NATO's NPG is a multilateral agreement. But under both agreements, the U.S. has operational control of the nuclear weapons. There are some concerns that the new deal may not be as effective as NATO's arrangement with the U.S., as a U.S. official even said that although the Washington Declaration will help deter North Korean threats, it's not a nuclear sharing agreement. Some experts have even assessed that Biden is committed to giving Seoul a central role in strategic planning, as South Korea reaffirmed its commitment to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty by putting aside efforts to pursue its own nuclear arsenal. 배은지, Arirang News.
Andy Kim is a U.S. congressman, one of only 4 currently of Korean ancestry. Following President Yoon's state visit to the U.S., tonight we hear from him on what he has to say about the Korean-U.S. alliance that goes beyond the executive branches of the two countries. Our Kim Do-yeon had a chance to speak to him one-on-one.
U.S. diplomat turned lawmaker Andy Kim says South Korea and the United States are in it together no matter what happens, as the two countries mark the 70th year of their bilateral alliance. Speaking to Arirang News following President Yoon and Joe Biden's summit last week, Kim stressed that the summit proved Washington is committed to working with Seoul in various strategic areas.
Anything that happens, it happens together, that there's going to be that consultation, and we can absolutely have assurances that we will never leave the South Korea exposed or vulnerable. That's part of what this was all about. We have a strategic interest in South Korea as a whole, and that's something that we're going to protect.
Kim also said the two leaders showing a, quote, embedded relationship, and that level of engagement will help the two get through global conflicts that the two countries may face in the future. He also added the alliance goes beyond just the two presidents and that there is a bipartisan support at U.S. Congress, which plays a key role in the alliance as well. In fact, at the U.S. Senate, while President Yoon was in Washington, a resolution was unanimously passed which welcomed the state visit by President Yoon and highlighted the importance of the ROK-U.S. alliance.
I also recognize that you got to have the resources and that deeper commitment, and that's what comes with the United States Congress. That's why it's so important that we had that joint session, an opportunity for all of us in Congress to come together and recognize and support this strategic alliance.
In light of the U.S. observance of AAPI month in May, Kim also shed light on his role as a Korean American and also an Asian American in the legislative branch. There are currently 4 members of the House with Korean ancestry, evenly split between the Democrats and Republicans.
When we see right now rising discrimination and violence against the Asian American community, you can't guarantee that the government's going to focus on that. It helps to have people that understand the experiences and the challenges of certain communities and background.
Kim further highlighted the role of Asian Americans as a bridge in the global community in times of high geopolitical tensions.
When we're focused on these issues right now about foreign policy, about having increased action towards the Indo-Pacific, and we have tensions and challenges between the United States and China, it's good to have Asian Americans be able to be people that not only understand the nuances here in America, but could also potentially be a bridge in helping us engage with the rest of the world too.
Calling South Korea a, quote, top-tier world power, Kim also expressed hope that South Korea will continue to step up not only as a regional leader, but a global pivotal state. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, Washington, D.C.
Now on the economic front, with outbound shipments of chips, one of Korea's key export items, plunging amid the sluggish global chip market, South Korea's exports fell for the 7th consecutive month in April. Accordingly, Korea's trade balance remains in the red for the 14th straight month. Our Lee Soo-jin has more on the trade figures for April.
South Korea's exports continued to fall short of its imports last month. Data from the Trade Ministry released on Monday shows that exports fell more than 14% on year to around $50 billion in April. Monthly exports have seen an on-year decline since October last year. This is largely driven by the slump in the demand for chips, the nation's key export item. Exports of semiconductors last month were down over 40% compared to the previous year, recording an on-year decline since last August. The nation's outbound shipments to China and the ASEAN region both tumbled more than 26%, both areas where a large share of exports consist of semiconductors. The Trade Ministry said that the on-year decline in April's exports is also partly due to the base effect, as last year's exports were the highest ever for the month of April. Meanwhile, imports came to more than $52 billion, down 13.3% compared to the previous year. The drop was mostly due to the value of energy imports falling more than 25.8% on lower global energy prices. Imports, however, of items crucial to the nation's high-tech industry, such as semiconductor equipment and secondary battery materials, rose. This brought the nation's trade balance last month to a deficit of around $2.6 billion. The country has logged a trade deficit since March last year, the longest streak since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. But the monthly trade deficit, which reached over $12 billion in January, is now getting smaller. Last month was the first month since June last year that the deficit fell below the $2 billion mark. The Trade Ministry said that it will focus on finding and investing in promising items that could strengthen exports. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Also on the local front, sales of eco-friendly cars jumped 43% on year in the first quarter of this year. According to Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association on Monday, nearly 100,000 eco-friendly vehicles were sold during the January to March period. Hybrid electric vehicles were the most popular, with more than 60,000 cars sold, given their affordability as well as the limited number of EV charging stations. The association projects sales for eco-friendly cars will continue to climb as new models hit the market this year from Hyundai, Kia, and KG Mobility. Starting today, those entering South Korea are not required to fill out customs declaration papers should they have nothing to declare. Our Song Yoo-jin reports on this change in entry protocol.
From Monday, travelers entering South Korea will have one fewer form to fill out. Those who have nothing to declare will no longer have to fill out a customs declaration form, whether they arrive by plane or boat. Previously, all travelers had to complete the form on paper or on their mobile phone, then wait in long lines to submit them, regardless of whether they had anything to declare. According to data from the Korea Customs Service, in 2019, 98.8% of travelers had nothing to declare but had to wait to submit their customs forms. Under the new changes, travelers carrying goods worth over $800, more than $10,000 in cash, more than 2 bottles of liquor, or more than 60 millimeters of perfume will have to fill out the form. Arrival halls will be separated into 2 lanes, nothing to declare and goods to declare. And from July, travelers with something to declare will be able to go through the customs process faster by using the Korea Customs Service's mobile app. They can submit the customs form and pay their taxes right away through the app. Currently, travelers must go through customs inspection after submitting their forms, get their tax calculated, receive the bill, and pay their taxes. The government hopes this simplified process will make travel easier for the more than 43 million people traveling to Korea every year and ultimately boost tourism. 송유진, Arirang News.
Local transmissions of Mpox are on the rise in South Korea, with the number of confirmed Mpox cases up by 5 in recent days. This is according to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency on Monday, reporting that a total of 47 people have thus far infected with the disease in the country. 3 more were added on Sunday, following one on both Saturday and Friday. All are South Korean nationals without recent overseas travel history. None are in critical condition. Beginning Tuesday, the KDCA will share the nation's daily tally of confirmed infections on its official website. In sports, Tottenham Hotspur forward Heung-min on Sunday scored his 10th Premier League goal of the season. This brings Son to double figures in the Premier League for 7 years in a row. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
In an epic match between Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool at Anfield Stadium on Sunday, South Korean national football team captain Son Heung-min scored Spurs' second goal in the 77th minute as the visitors worked to recover from finding themselves 3-0 down after 15 minutes. Despite a dramatic equalizer for Tottenham in the 3rd minute of injury time, Liverpool came out on top, winning 4-3 thanks to Diogo Jota's winner just a minute later. However, despite the defeat for Sonny, the goal against Liverpool was his 10th league goal of the season, and this means that for the 7th straight season, he has scored at least 10 goals. Having made his Tottenham debut in 2015, Son has scored at least 10 league goals each season starting in the 2016-2017 campaign. That includes his Golden Boot-winning 2021-2022 season, where he netted 23 goals to tie with Mohamed Salah of Liverpool as the Premier League's top marksman. Son also has 145 goals in all competitions for the club, making him the 6th most prolific scorer in the team's history. He'll now have his eye on passing club legend Cliff Jones, who is 5th on the leaderboard with 154 Tottenham goals. However, for Son, more important than his latest milestone is his team finishing in the top 4 this season to earn a spot in next season's Champions League. With 4 more league matches remaining this season, Spurs trail 4th-place Manchester United by 9 points, and with the Champions League spot still mathematically possible, they'll need results elsewhere to go their way. However, Liverpool leads Tottenham by 2 points with 5 more matches to play, while United has 6 more games, leaving Sonny and his Tottenham teammates with a tough task ahead. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Wide gaps in daily temperatures will continue tomorrow, with daytime highs rising further. Highs in Seoul will be topping out at 25 degrees, while places like Daejeon and Uiseong will see warmer temperatures. Some inland regions will see a gap of more than 20 degrees between day and night. Big fluctuation in daily temperatures can make our bodies more vulnerable to viruses, so please take extra care of your health. The combination of strong winds and faster air circulation will help ease off the fine dust levels. The entire nation will see air quality standing in the normal to good category. Sunny spells will dominate for the morning hours tomorrow. Seoul and Daegu will be starting off at 10 degrees. Parts of central regions will see more cloud coverage for the daytime. Seoul will be reaching 25 degrees. Daejeon 26. Gyeongju will be very warm at 27 degrees. Until Thursday, early summer-like conditions will persist across the nation. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Monday night's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the latest news tomorrow. Hope everyone has a great start of the week and a good night.
I'm live. 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션 분들
아무리 봐도 없지 펜션 같은데 난 이런 거 아무도 안 하는 거고